My husband's hand struck my face in front of 500 wedding guests. But the one thing he never bothered to learn me was about to destroy his entire world. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, laughter floating through the air like perfume. For one fragile hour, I actually believed I belonged there. My husband, Damon, moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands, flashing that smile I once adored. His parents greeted relatives near the grand staircase, warm and welcoming. No cold shoulders, no whispered insults. But I should have known better. Because every time this family has smiled at me before, it was only to hide a knife. Love shouldn't feel like waiting for the other shoe to drop. I met Damon 3 years ago at a corporate event. I was temping invisible, content to blend into the wallpaper. He was the rising star, charming, ambitious, the kind of man everyone noticed. One afternoon, he approached my desk with a question about a file. That simple moment ignited something I hadn't felt in years. We began talking. Coffee breaks stretched into hours. Late nights at the office turned into deep conversations under fluorescent lights. Why did I fall so hard? Because for the first time, someone looked at me and didn't see a bank account or a last name. Or so I thought. One evening, curled on his couch, he asked about my family. I hesitated. Then I told him the lie I had perfected. My parents died when I was young. I had no one, no inheritance, no safety net. The words tasted bitter because they weren't true. My father is alive. He's one of the wealthiest men in the country. But I wanted Damon to choose me for me, not for my connections. He held me tighter that night, promising he didn't care about any of that. And I believed him. That was my first mistake. When he proposed, I said yes without a second thought. The wedding was small, intimate, exactly what I wanted. But from the first dinner at his family's estate, I felt the shift. His mother examined my dress like she was assessing livestock. His father, Victor, barely looked at me. So Elera, Victor said, pushing food around his plate. What exactly do you bring to this family? I laughed nervously, but no one else did. That night Damon kissed my forehead and said, they'll warm up, give them time. Time, however, only made them colder. It started with little comments. You're so quiet. Are you always this boring? Must be nice marrying up. I smiled through each jab, telling myself it was harmless. But Victor became bolder. At a family barbecue he announced to a table of relatives, my son could have had anyone. Instead, he chose a girl with nothing. No pedigree, no money, no class. I looked at Damon, desperate for him to speak. He stared at his plate. That was the first crack. Weeks turned into months of the same pattern. Victor's insults became routine. You're a parasite. You've drained my son's potential. We should have never let her through the front door. Damon stopped defending me entirely. He'd laugh along, sometimes even add his own quiet digs. She's not good with people, he told his mother once, as if I wasn't standing right there. Why did I stay? Because I remembered the man who held me and promised forever. I kept hoping that would come back. He never did. Then Damon announced the anniversary gala, a massive celebration at the city's most exclusive venue. 500 guests, press, everyone who was anyone. For weeks his family treated me almost kindly. Victor asked about my dress. His mother helped with seating arrangements. I started to believe foolishly that maybe they had finally accepted me. But that hope was a trap and I walked right into it. The night of the gala, I wore a deep blue gown. My hair was pinned up. I felt beautiful for the first time in years. Damon smiled when he saw me, and for one perfect moment, I thought, this is it. This is our fresh start. We posed for photos. We greeted guests. Everything sparkled. Then Victor tapped his champagne glass with a fork, and the room fell silent. 1 year. Victor announced, his voice dripping with false warmth. 1 year since my son made the biggest mistake of his life. A few people laughed nervously. I forced a smile, my heart already racing. Victor turned to me, his eyes gleaming. But tonight we correct mistakes. The room started whispering. Damon wouldn't look at me. What is this? I asked quietly. Victor stepped closer. My son deserves a real wife. Someone with status, wealth, value. He pointed his glass at me. Not a charity case who brought nothing but her sad little smile. The laughter that followed wasn't nervous anymore. It was cruel. I felt 500 pairs of eyes on me like needles. That's enough. I said, my voice shaking but clear. You don't get to humiliate me in front of everyone. I stepped toward Victor, my hands trembling. The sound cracked through the ballroom like thunder. My head snapped sideways, my cheek burned. For a second the world went silent. Then I turned slowly to see Damon lowering his hand. The same hands that once held me were the ones that struck me down. Don't you dare speak to my father that way, Damon said, his voice cold. I've had enough of you, I deserve better. His mother nodded approvingly. Victor smiled, and the crowd, 500 people, began to laugh again. My ears rang, my face throbbed. But something inside me didn't break. It hardened. I reached into my clutch, pulled out my phone, and dialed a number I never thought I'd call in front of them. The phone rang once, twice, then a deep voice answered. Lara. I closed my eyes. Dad, I whispered, I need you. Please come. The line was silent for a moment. Thin, I'm on my way. I hung up and slipped the phone back into my bag. Victor laughed loudly. Calling your imaginary father? The one you said was dead. More laughter. I said nothing. I just stood there, hand pressed in my reddening cheek, and waited. 15 minutes passed. The party resumed its rhythm, music, chatter, clinking glasses. Damon avoided my eyes. Victor held court like a king. Then the grand doors at the back of the ballroom swung open. The room didn't notice at first. But then a ripple of silence spread from the back. People turned. The music faltered. A man in a tailored charcoal suit walked in, flanked by 2 security guards. He wasn't tall, but his presence sucked the air out of the room. I watched Victor's smile freeze. Damon's champagne glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor. No, Damon breathed. That's Harold Vance. Victor laughed nervously. Ooh, Damon's face had gone white. The CEO of Vance Industries, the man who owns half this city, the company I work for. Harold Vance walked straight to me, ignoring everyone else. When he reached me, he cupped my chin gently, tilting my face to the light. His eyes landed on the red welt on my cheek. I saw something darken in his gaze. Dad, I said softly. The word echoed in the silent room. Victor's mouth fell open. Your father is Harold Vance, he stammered. But you said you had no one. I didn't answer. My father turned to face the crowd. His expression carved from stone. Then he looked at Damon. You work for me. It wasn't a question. Damon nodded, trembling. Sir, I didn't know. You didn't know? Harold repeated. So you thought it was acceptable to slap my daughter in front of 500 people? Victor tried to intervene. This is a misunderstanding, Mr. Vance. We didn't know who she was. If we had, Harold raised one hand. Victor stopped mid-sentence. If you had known, Harold said quietly, you would have treated her like a human being. That's not an excuse, that's an indictment. He turned to Damon. The company you work for. It's in her name. Everything I own will be hers. And you just threw away the only person who ever truly loved you. Damon fell to his knees. Please, Elara, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I was under pressure from my father. I love you. I looked down at him. This man I had given everything for. And I felt nothing. You love what I could have given you, I said. Not me. I turned to my father. Take me home. Harold nodded. As we walked toward the doors, Victor called out. We can fix this. A donation to her charity, a public apology. I stopped at the threshold. Without turning around, I said, you didn't lose me tonight. You lost the one person who chose you when she had every reason not to. Then I walked out into the cold night air, my father's arm around my shoulders. Behind me, I heard Damon sobbing. I didn't look back. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply walking away with your head held high. The next morning, Damon's resignation was on my father's desk. Divorce papers followed within a week. I didn't attend the court hearing. I didn't need to see his face again. 6 months later, I launched a foundation for domestic abuse survivors. My father stood beside me at the press conference. A reporter asked if I regretted marrying Damon. I smiled. I regret not leaving sooner. But I don't regret learning exactly what I'm worth. If you're watching this, and you've ever stayed somewhere you weren't valued, please know this: your worth doesn't depend on someone else's ability to see it. Like and subscribe to Winds of Thought for more stories of strength and redemption. And remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is make that one phone call.